What? All right, guys. Welcome to Lou TV. Showing up, I guess it's a Wednesday only show nowadays. Just everybody's so busy with Fridays. Might have to do a show Saturday morning. I'll have to talk to my guys here after the show, but
Possible.
welcome back as always, Andrew and Zach. Zach is currently drafting on Fantasy Elite. Great timing with that. And Andrew just got done with the Fantasy Elite draft. Don't tell me specifics, but how do you guys feel about your draft? And how much did you play for?
I threw down a $10 game.
Yeah, that's
And
what I'm in right now.
initially, I didn't like my team that much, but I did some shuffling, and I'm feeling pretty good about it now.
So you shuffled some after the fact. You dropped and added after, huh?
Yeah, I guess that feature is good and bad because you can second guess yourself, which is what I tend to do way too often. But it's worked out for me the last couple of weeks, so I
All
don't
right.
know.
And Zach, you seem to be pressed for 5K, guys.
Yeah, I definitely jumped on the. You're actually, don't judge me, but I took Trevor Knight.
Yeah, I was going to say, if you say Trevor Knight, I'm judging you.
I tried to be all cool and sneaky with my first couple picks, and then I saw Gurley, and I couldn't say no. But then I had to cut him afterwards because I couldn't fit a second quarterback in.
Hey, but I think the worst case scenario, maybe the guy doesn't realize you dropped him, and then nobody has Todd Gurley.
I don't think that guy can afford him unless he does some major shuffling. So
Yeah, so I mean, I don't think it's.
yeah, it's fine. It was a great use of my third pick.
All right, so I'm actually going to get on here and do some stuff with the Fantasy Elite draft. I was waiting because I'm smart to talk to my homies about these drafts and then actually do it, as opposed to doing it beforehand. But who knows? Maybe
We
maybe
prefer to light money on fire.
yeah. I think Head Shopper and I have been playing back and forth. I don't know if it's on purpose. I just see his game and it always intrigues me. So I've been jumping on it. So maybe I can get him to play me again. Maybe I can finally beat him. I lost that big $250 head-to-head a couple weeks ago. That was rough. That was Melvin Gordon's coming out party. But anyways, let's get into it here. You guys both played this first slate with Georgia and Washington State, correct?
Correct.
Yeah, and I'm currently struggling to find.
All right, so that slate is to find the value. Washington, Missouri, Florida State, Syracuse, and Texas, Oklahoma. Fantasy Elite grant, they put together that they skip once they've seen Taysom Hill get hurt and skip that BYU game and just put the Friday game with some Saturday games. And honestly, this is a really intriguing matchup or some matchups here for us. Can we pour one out really quickly for Taysom Hill? What a player. And he's done. But sadly, we will not be rolling out Taysom Hill anymore. In his place, super high-priced Connor Halliday. He's a complete no-go, correct?
I'd say so. I wouldn't play him against Stanford.
Yeah, that's just untouchable for me. I have a hard time playing him with good matchups at 35K, but I could see the reasoning in it at that. But against Stanford, I've talked about how good their pass defense has been all year, and it's not getting any worse. I mean, they held Everett Golston in check last week. Andrew, you got to be thinking the same way, right?
Yeah, man. I mean, maybe if he was 25K, considering that the QBs aren't. There's a few. I mean, there's a few good ones. It's pretty top heavy in terms of QBs, but at 35K, that he seems pretty untouchable.
All right. Other quarterbacks on the board here. You said you picked Trevor Knight, Zach, in your draft?
Yeah, I'm actually thinking about dropping him. Yeah.
Because of us, hopefully.
Do what?
We talked you back to Saturday.
Yeah.
Well, let me hit you with some knowledge here because I've looked into the numbers here, and because I was looking at Perrine is actually underpriced on a few sites, and obviously Sterling Shepard has been unbelievable for
Right.
Oklahoma this year. And looking at these stats, man, they've allowed one game of 300-plus yards. Why am I looking at Tennessee here? What am I doing? I feel like I'm totally off the ball
What do you
here.
think? Getting back
Texas. I was thinking what's that?
Getting back to Connor Holiday real quick, what do you think his stats were last year against Stanford?
Bad, right? Because they got blown out.
Yeah, 180 yards and a pick.
Oh, I feel like it's a total letdown game too. Like regardless of who they play, like you watch what he did last week, and you sit there and think, 750 plus yards, whatever. Like this is like the classic time he comes out and throws 4 picks. I mean, and throws for 200 yards, which isn't a terrible amount of yardage, but when you throw for 750 the week before, you better throw for 400 the next week.
Yeah, I don't think that's a pretty huge drop off as it is, let alone to go to like 200 like he could possibly do against that defense. To finally get back on track, I don't know what I was doing. It's been a long day. Texas's defense, I think, is very underrated. They've only given up a 200-yard passing game once this season. That was to Brett Hundley in UCLA. They held Baylor to 111 yards and just 2 touchdowns. Brigham Young didn't pass. Taysom Hill didn't pass for a ton of yardage, just 181. I don't see where Trevor Knight's passing skills can get through this defense that has been actually pretty dang good against the pass, and honestly against the run, they've been almost as good as well. So I'm off Trevor Knight completely, even where he's underpriced on some sites. And Perrine, for me, is really just a GPP play, and you're just hoping for goal line carries. Andrew, you got to be hating Trevor Knight as well, right?
Of course I am, dude.
Yes.
I'm not touching him in a vacuum or in the slate. I just don't think he's going to have a good game. I think Perrine could have a good game this week, though. He's very correctly highly priced on Elite, though. I expect more yardage than last week against TCU, as you correctly pointed out, Chris. Their run D is awesome, but even still, at 22. I wouldn't roll him out completely, but you're going to have to do some manipulating of your roster if you want decent quarterbacks and Perrine. So I think it's tough to fit him in on the slate. Zachary,
you're off the Knight bandwagon then, huh?
Yeah, I picked him because I didn't see very many quarterbacks that I liked in the slate. The pricing, really. Halliday was too much. So I was like, well, I'll just take Trevor Knight. And then, as the draft went on, I'm sitting there thinking, why in the world did I take Trevor Knight? I hate Trevor Knight. I hate the guy. It's almost getting personal now.
Oh, it's definitely personal. The thing with Trevor Knight is, sure, he's not a good passer. He gets the yardage because he has, awesome, talent around him. Keith Ford as a running back is a great pass catcher when he's healthy. Shepard's probably the best receiver in the Big 12 right now. You're looking at his numbers last week against TCU, a very good defense. He threw for 300 yards, but he completed 14 of 35 passes. That's ridiculously low completion-wise. That just to me says that Sterling Shepard caught a 3-yard pass and went 80 yards 4 times to help him get to that number. And the thing is, with something I've been reading online, is that these Oklahoma play callers, whoever it is calling it these old school Oklahoma quarterbacks, who are those old quarterbacks that were really good for them?
Heupel and what's the other guy?
Heupel?
Yeah.
And Sam Bradford, they're not these. He's not a stable sit in the pocket guy. He can run a little bit, and they don't run him. Period. He had no runs against West Virginia. He had 5 against Tennessee, 5 against Tulsa. He just doesn't run enough for me. I don't think he can go there. I think some of the quarterbacks I would honestly be looking at are Kevin Hogan, and if Rashad Green is back, I think Jameis Winston at least gives you a good high floor there. I know his price isn't ideal, but that's got to be a high floor for him. I don't see last week's game being what he does this week. What do you think about that, Jameis Winston, Zach?
I like Jameis Winston, not only because I picked him, but I like him a lot this week because especially in this slate, if you don't take Trevor Knight, and you don't get Kevin Hogan, you have to take Winston, in my opinion, because you're not going to shell out the $35K for Holiday. Because the value in this slate isn't really as valuable as it has been in weeks past. Like, the guys that were 5K weeks ago are now 7 or 8K.
Mm-hmm. Because Grant's been watching the show, and he's been watching you talk these little guys up. To give you an idea of where Syracuse's offense or defense is at against the pass, they've only really faced 2 good quarterbacks this season, and against them they've given up 642 yards and 6 touchdowns, and that's Everett Golson, who they gave up a ton of yardage to, probably one of his best games this year, Golson, and C.J. Brown against Maryland. Almost 300 yards for C.J. Brown is pretty amazing in itself there. So I don't think, I think that's a great matchup for him. Kevin Hogan, can you tell me why Kevin Hogan's a good play, Andrew, or are you not really on him?
No, I agree he's a good play. Granted, he's not 100% going to play, so that's clearly something to monitor, even though it seems like it's trending in the direction that he's going to play. But, we've seen in years past, and this year's no different, that, I could probably throw for 200 on Mike Leach's defense. And Stanford really just has no semblance of a consistent ground game as badly as they want to, and maybe it's possible to get something going in this game just because Wazoo doesn't really bring much to the table in terms of defense. But for probably the best value play, I would say, just in terms of matchup and price on Elite this week, I think if he plays, it's safe to book him for 2 or 3 touchdowns.
Yeah, 17K, it's hard to pass up.
That being said, I definitely like Winston and Mock as the best plays regardless of price, and I don't think that's really up for debate. Mock he's gonna destroy Uga's secondary. It's just atrocious, and while I expect it to be a competitive game because I expect Uga to win every game ever. I think Mock's going to have a huge game as well.
All right, let me play a little bit of devil's advocate. I like Matty Mock. I've liked him for a while now, but I think if people were going to say, well, why would you think he tears up this UGA defense when he didn't really tear up South Carolina's defense, and they've had their consistent troubles this whole season. They were terrible to start the year against Texas A&M, even though Kenny Hill is just, proven to be the real deal. They've had some really bad games defensively against the pass. So why do you think this one is going to be different compared than their last game, which was 2 weeks ago?
Dude's coming out of a rough week. I think he's coming out of a bye, right?
Yeah, he's got the bye week.
Okay, yeah. Coming out of a bye. He's been great every other game, basically, except that South Carolina game. All the touchdowns that they get, for the most part, a large percentage of them seem to go through him every single week. And as bad as South Carolina's defense might be, Uga's is even worse. Dylan Thompson destroyed them, and everybody else has had a good amount of success against them as well. So, I have no qualms about Matt Mock's projections for this week.
Yeah, I think you hit it on the head there. The bye week is going to help him a lot. Receivers like Sasser and is Jimmy Hunt. I don't know if Jimmy Hunt's healthy, but some of these guys, all these guys are new guys. So another week of chemistry to work on that, and the fact that, like you said, Dylan Thompson tore up this Georgia defense. Dylan Thompson we saw in that same Missouri game is not very good, and I would say Matty Mock is obviously a better runner. That can help him out in that situation. Looking at these other quarterbacks, I think, Mock obviously, like you said, is a good quarterback. But 2 guys I'm definitely not touching, not anywhere near touching. I would punt before picking these guys. Your boy Hudson Mason, Andrew, and Tyrone Swoops, who I've kind of adopted as this guy that I want to be awesome, but just I don't think he's going to be ever really that great unless he plays Kansas 12 times a year. I don't think Tyrone Swoops and Hudson Mason are guys that you can touch at all. 12 and 14K, that's kind of ridiculously high for me in terms of what they're going to be putting up. Zach, do you feel the same way?
Well, as you say that, I actually had Swoops kind of just to take him as the low-price quarterback. Not that I like him, but I had to fill in my roster with other than 5K guys, so I took Swoops. But, yeah.
Who are the police coming for right now?
It's not me.
Andrew. Because he lives in Jersey, man. He can't get away from it.
No, I honestly though, like, I took Swoops mainly for the fill out the rest of my roster with guys that'll actually play.
Yeah, I don't really see where you. I would honestly probably pick Bryce Ramsey at 5K. I just don't like Tyron Swoops at all, man. He had that good matchup against Kansas and did just enough with it to warrant his value. But besides that, like, he had a really bad game last week against West Virginia.
Baylor.
Did he play Baylor?
Yeah.
Baylor, same thing. I was thinking Kansas Montel Cozart, who, if he did play, would have played really bad.
That was our preseason Heisman guy, right?
Montel Cozart, yeah, that's the guy we were hoping for. Andrew, you were really harping on. Andrew's stunned by the police over there.
Yeah, Andrew's trying not to move because they're outside.
If they see the shadows, he's done. Who's starting for Syracuse, Zach? Maybe you can tell us this, and maybe he's 5K and is worth a look.
He's not in the elite slate.
Austin Wilson is projected to start. Freshman.
No, it just came out. It's going to be
is it?
Alex Morgan, I think his name is.
Alex Morgan. That's a female soccer player.
And she's pretty good looking.
Yeah.
Oh, Alex Moran. Is that person in the system? Maybe I spelled it wrong when I was searching for it.
I don't see him here. Unfortunate. Well, I think what we've learned here is you got to try and. What's that?
I think you stay with this guy.
I think Andrew's making up players on his own now.
I'm just going by what Twitter tells me, buddy.
Anyways, I think we got to move along here. We've been crushing this quarterback for way too long. But yeah, I think Mock, Winston, Hogan, those are the guys you really want to look for. I guess worst case scenario, you could plug in Swoops or maybe just punt and go Bryce Ramsey because they have talked about how a 2-quarterback situation is might be where they're headed. I talked about this. What is this? This Oklahoma or this Texas defense. I think they're very underrated. P. Ryan. I think if you can guarantee him 2 or 3, let's say 5 goal line carries, he's good for 2 or 3 touchdowns. But for 22K, that's a whole lot of risk there. Andrew, I know you like him or do think he's better than what I expect. But Zach, what do you think about him?
I'm sorry, I was.
Samaje, my boy, Perrine.
As the guys on Fox Sports 1 say, P. Ryan.
P. Ryan.
I don't know how it's pronounced, but
I've heard P. Ryan, to be honest.
I like P. Ryan better.
That's a way to say it.
I don't know.
Yeah, Perrine. I'm sticking with Perrine.
All right. Well, he's been on a tear, man. Like, it's hard to pick against the guy at this point. But as you said, Texas defense is no joke. If they had any offense to go with it, they'd be a pretty good team.
Yeah, they'd be really good. I think they've given up 6 rushing touchdowns, and 5 of them have been to Taysom Hill and the BYU Cougars.
Well, and Keith Ford is actually I guess last night they said he's officially out.
He's out, so that's nice. And that just means he's going to get 25 carries, P. Ryan. But
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, I think 100 yards and a touchdown are a lock. Well, I'd say 80 yards and a touchdown is a lock. If he can get 85 against TCU, then I think he should be good for that. I just don't know if 3 is a reasonable number against Texas. Andrew's going to obviously love Todd Gurley. I can explain why I don't like Todd Gurley here in a second, but Zach, what are your thoughts on him this week against Missouri?
Look, I wasn't, super high on Gurley this year like you guys were, but I mean, I acknowledge that he's probably one of the best.
He's not too bad.
No, I acknowledged then that he was probably the best NFL-ready running back of the running backs, but I just wasn't sure about how Georgia was going to be the new quarterback, that teams will just load the box. But I've realized that doesn't matter. So, yeah, I again, he's one of those guys that if you've saved your money throughout your roster and just to get Gurley, man, I couldn't fault you for doing it.
I see. The thing with me is I love Gurley in general, but I just, the fact that Missouri stopped Mike Davis and Steve Spurrier has talked about how Missouri is the best tackling team they've seen all year. And, what are some consistent things that you've seen from the games against Missouri that they've struggled with? Teams that can throw the football and have good running backs. Toledo did that against them. Indiana did that against them, and they both were successful. And South Carolina did not. So what's the missing link here is the quarterback play. And to me, I don't think Hudson Mason's good enough. Now, for sure, Gurley's going to get his yardage and his touchdown because he's just that good. But for 30-plus thousand on Fantasy Elite, I cannot do it. I just can't. There's not enough.
50-yard pass he threw last week?
What's that?
Did you not see the 50-yard pass Gurley threw last week?
I didn't, but I didn't realize they were running a Wildcat offense like they're Kentucky all week. Just amazing Kentucky last week, what they did to South Carolina. So you guys can be on Gurley, and I surely won't get mad at you for it, but just on Fantasy Elite, that's not what I want to be doing with the 30,000. Maybe I'm going against the grain here. Sometimes I like to do that with these studs. Like I haven't been on Gurley or Coleman in weeks.
No, you're right on Gurley in the slate. I tried to fit him into a roster, and my roster just looked terrible. But by the time I actually got done constructing it and had Gurley in it.
Well, let me ask you this then: like what you said about Missouri's defense, like the passing game beats them. I get it. Mason hasn't had a great season, but he does complete almost 70% of his passes, does he not?
Yeah, but the thing.
But hold on though,
Yeah, go ahead.
Not throw for 2 touchdowns in this game.
I think the thing is though that you need to see Mason go downfield, and I think what is it, Bobo or Bryce Bobo or whatever this coach's name is, Andrew Mike Bobo, he just doesn't challenge the defense, doesn't spread out and push those safeties back. I could see Missouri play 7 in the box consistently, and then might even throw an 8th guy in the box because there's no deep threat for Georgia that's going to space him out.
Yeah, I guess for 14K though, in this slate, I mean, because that's the quarterbacks that are at the top are really highly priced.
Yeah, there's a big price gap.
And I think that honestly, Mason isn't terrible. I think I would roll the dice with him this week. And just and hope that he gets, he hasn't thrown a 200-yard game yet, as I say this, but this is the week. I'm saying it, and he's going to do it. 200 yards, 2 touchdowns.
Zach makes a bold call on Fantasy on Lou TV today. 200 yards and 2 touchdowns from a Division I quarterback.
That's bold, yeah.
Looking at some of these other guys here, we have Mario Pender going to be looking to start against Syracuse instead of Carlos Williams. I think all the way around we can agree that'll be a really good play there. And I know you were talking about Nick Chubb as a 5K option, Andrew. Kind of tell me what you think about him in this matchup. Is he going to get enough carries, or is this one of those players that really you need to have him in games against Vanderbilt where they're going to be up by a lot?
No, man. I think if you want to, I think there's maybe 3 to 4 5K options that you'll want to consider because you're going to want to own some of the bigger guys in the slate. And I think Chubb's one of them. Initially, Georgia started with 4 running backs at the start of the year: Chubb, Sony Michael, Keith Marshall, and Gurley. Michael's out with, I forget what the injury is, but he's out for a while. Keith Marshall's sprained his ankle and sprained his knee up, and he's out for at least a week or 2. Not that he was getting much playing time anyway, but as great as Gurley is, Georgia loves keeping him fresh throughout games because they rely on him to close out games in the fourth quarter. So I see Chubb getting entire drives to himself, and they also split him out wide at times. So I think you could book him for 8 to 12 touches in this game, which for a 5K guy, I mean, that's solid. Granted, Missouri's run D is solid, but For 5K, I think Chubb's pretty solid.
Yeah, he's been pretty awesome with his limited touches. I had him in a lineup, one of my lineups that cashed in that $27 tournament on DraftKings, and he had been pretty much a dud. And then all of a sudden, he breaks off like a 60-yard touchdown run. And I don't care if it's Vanderbilt's defense in the fourth quarter, but when you have 6 carries or 7 carries and you're ending with 80 yards and a touchdown, that's pretty good. Any way you slice it there. Other running back options, Zach, maybe run through some of these guys. Who's starting for Stanford? I know that Barry Sanders hasn't been playing very well. Syracuse's guy is probably not worth it, but who else are we looking at here?
I mean, you're looking at Ramon Wright, Kelsey Young. I think between Wright, Young, and Sanders, it's tough because they kind of divvied up between those 3 guys. But I think Wright and Young definitely get a good share of the carries.
You would have to think that some Stanford running back's going to have put up a minimum of 10 to 15 points in this game. Just Stanford's not going to go straight passing, even though they could probably pass all day on Washington State if they wanted to. But among those 3 guys, any of them could be the man. I think it's tough to count on, even if you draft 2 or 3 on them, any of one of them having a monster game, because the carries have been split pretty evenly throughout the year.
Just to put it like this way, like they played Notre Dame last week. Wright had 10 touches, Young had 7, and Sanders had 3. So, I mean, not very many touches, but still 20 divvied up between 3 guys. But that's Notre Dame. But this is Washington State.
Yeah, tough situation, and honestly, the guy that doesn't start might have the best game just because they could be up by 30, and then they throw him in the fourth quarter, and Barry Sanders is
That's
in.
who I've got. I took Barry Sanders to 1 mainly because he's 5K.
Yeah, I would definitely be between Young and Sanders because they're 5K, and then just hope that really they either A, start and blow it up, or B, get that second half carries that in the big blowout there. Really, really quick, Texas running backs, if you would have told me 10K for them at the beginning of the season, I would have been really ecstatic about it. Now, I'm not happy about it at all. They're just really haven't done a whole lot. Passing game is nothing there for them. Going against a good Oklahoma defense. Avoiding these guys, Zach?
Normally if this, weren't such a huge game, like for these 2 teams, I probably would, but what I've learned in rivalry games that you can't really throw anything out the window. These are the type of games where if they're going to have like a game where they break out, this might be the one. That's how I look at it. It's hard for me. Like I've always thought, Oklahoma should blow Texas out, and then Texas somehow hangs around in the game and plays better than everyone thought. So,
Andrew, did you have thoughts on that?
Yeah, I agree. Once a lot of the guys in that 9, 10, 11 K range that you're trying to fill out your roster with probably near the end of the draft, a lot of the guys in that range seemed like they went pretty quickly when I did my draft because it seemed like there's some of the better values. And once they're gone, and I mean Pender, Ty Montgomery both went off the board pretty quick. The Texas running backs are pretty much – there's not much else around them that was really looking too great to me. So, and factoring in what Zach said about the rivalry game, I think that's a narrative I can buy into in this instance. I expect them to have decent games and probably come close to – probably more so than Malcolm Brown than Jonathan Gray. But, I mean, for 10K, I'm fine with it.
All right, moving on to some receivers here. Are we throwing out these Washington State receivers? I mean, the way they've been playing, you see them at 22K, 21K, 15K. That's too high, right? That's just way too high.
Well, I think 22 is too high. Like Isaiah Myers at 15 may not be that high, but just mainly because of the amount of targets. Like if he catches 7 passes, I mean, that might be a solid guy to have. But yeah, it's tough to go 22 and say that because you're expecting him to have 150 yards and a touchdown when you pay that.
Yeah.
Right. If we're expecting a bad game out of Holiday, I mean, it's not like these guys dominates targets to the point where you could say, like, oh, even if Holiday's a bad game, he's going to get his. They're all pretty dependent on seeing enough volume to the usual Connor Holiday passing volume, which, I mean, I think we agree on is going to be difficult to come by in this game.
Yeah, I think we just two top guys who really, really have to avoid, just way too high priced, maybe at 15 or 14K, like
Right.
like you said, Isaiah Myers is, Zach. That's a guy you could look at there. One guy you already mentioned, Ty Montgomery, seems to be a really good option, although he's kind of struggled this year. Hasn't broken 100 yards receiving yet. Didn't play well against Notre Dame. He's been getting some carries and has been spotty on that, but at that price, I think you kind of have to take the chance. 9K, I think it is. No, 10.9K. I think you take that chance there. Andrew, you said he went off the board fairly fast, right?
Yeah, and I think I would expect that to be the norm in this draft for this slate. If he's ever going to have one of those Ty Montgomery 4-touch 180-yard games, it's got to be this one, you would think.
Yeah.
So I'm completely on board with him.
Yeah, low risk there for me.
Yeah. 11K is nothing for him.
Yeah, nothing really. 11. He's the biggest option for Hogan, so if you like Hogan and Hogan's playing, you got to imagine Montgomery does a lot of the damage there. Tell me a receiver that you're really looking at here, Zach, and what his price is.
Hold on, let me get to my thing here. I actually, with Rashad Green playing, it kind of takes my 5K receiver out. But I had Ermon Lane from Florida State, which he still may have a pretty solid game, just because if they should blow them out. But again, like, they haven't been that impressive this year. But with a new quarterback at Syracuse, I think Florida State goes up pretty big. You could see these younger guys getting on the field, and Ermon Lane actually had 2 catches for 70 yards against Wake Forest last week. So I think he could have a nice game this week.
Okay, and one guy I'm looking at, a little more expensive than I had hoped, but Bud Sasser from Missouri, a guy that I'm looking at here against that defense, like you said, Andrew, Georgia, he should be able to do very well against. And honestly, he's looked to be, really the number one target for Matty Mock. After that first game, he had just 2 catches and a touchdown against South Dakota State, but he's come on strong. 200-plus yard games, 5 catches in 4 straight. A big 12-catch game against Indiana. And even against South Carolina, when Matty Mock was bad and that offense really just wasn't clicking, he still ended with 6 catches and 86 yards. So I think you can say right now that 5 catches, 75 yards is a floor for him. And, he's caught a bunch of touchdowns this season, 4 on the season. That's a guy that I'm looking at there. By the way, I totally thought Bud Sasser was white. And then I'm watching the Missouri game last week, and he's not white. And it's, what I'm saying? The guy's name is Bud.
He's got. I assume he's one of those Missouri clones where he's like 6'5" and just wins every jump ball.
He's 6'2", but he looks tall. He just looks tall when you're watching him play. He's really turned it on after that first lame game. So I'm on the Bud Sasser train. I'm going to be having him across most of the sites as long as his price isn't too crazy.
Oh, by the way, before you jump off Missouri, Jimmy Hunt and Darius White are both in the starting lineup this week.
So all 3 are starting.
What I read.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just confirming they do start 3 receivers. That's not
interesting because White's 5K and Hunt's 8Gs. So
yeah, I took Hunt in my draft just because of his price mainly.
Hang on, I gotta drop somebody for him in mine right now.
Yeah, I think Jimmy Hunt at that price, I think that's a guy you can look at, and obviously Darius White at 8K is not bad as well, especially if you're on the the Andrew side of things where you really think that that bye week's going to help him out. It obviously helped these guys get healthy. I know that Hunt battled a hamstring issue for a little bit. He's probably good with that now. But yeah, I think that really, if that news affects people on other sites more than it does on Fantasy Elite, I think Sasser is still a solid option here, but it might change some things on a DraftKings or a draft day where if you're playing a GPP, you really can't take the chance of a guy getting some of those targets stolen away. So some good news there for us. Other guys we're looking at, nobody from Texas, right? John Harris has been good, but you can't. I mean, you said the rivalry thing. Do you think you can still warrant playing him then? I guess at the same price as those running backs.
He gets a lot of targets. No,
He does. He does. He's had a touchdown in every game until the last one.
Granted, those targets are coming from Tyron Swoops, so they're probably not very accurate. But overall, I guess the Missouri receiver news kind of changes this. But my initial thought was that the receiver was the weakest link in this. Find receivers overall that are ownable at their price. So I mean, I wouldn't entirely rule out Harris, but I definitely.
Gotcha.
Montgomery more, obviously, but I wouldn't completely rule out Harris, I don't think.
What about, who was I just going to ask you guys about? What about this other Florida State receiver, Jesus Wilson, a.k.a. Jesus Wilson? Not too heavily priced, $7K. I think really he would be the second receiver or the third receiver according to stats. He had that big game against NC State, so he plays in games that are close.
Yeah, he's solid.
Rashad Green is heading towards playing. But Zach, I think you have the opinion that he won't be getting as many snaps as typical, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think if they're up big, like I said, middle of the second quarter, it's 28-0. I don't see why they would put him out.
Maybe way worse than that.
I'm just saying, like if it's 4, 5, 6 touchdowns,
yeah,
why have him out there? There's no reason. If you start him, great. He makes a couple catches, but then they go up big. I just just make sure he's healthy for the long haul.
Agreed.
I will say though that I believe FSU spread's only 21. I mean, obviously that's a big scoring game, but I'm just saying I don't think it's going to become as early of a blowout as some might think. At least Vegas doesn't believe so. It's moved up to 4, so maybe all this recent news has pushed it towards there. I like Jesus either way.
Go ahead.
I mean, I like Jesus either way. If Rashad Green plays, I'm still fine with him at that $7K price. If he doesn't play, I love him for that price. Ermine Lane obviously benefits more if Green's out, and I still think he'd be fine at $5K either way.
Travis Rudolph, $5K wide receiver.
Travis Rudolph. Yeah, somebody mentioned him on Twitter to me early in the morning, and I was trying to find some stuff on him. What can you tell me about him, Zach?
Oh, he's a freshman. Just, if Green does, in fact, kind of take it easy, Lane and Rudolph, both freshmen, could have pretty solid games.
All right, so I think we need to move on to the second slate so we can complete it here. Like you said, I think the receivers are pretty weak in this one, or in that last one here. The second slate: Illinois at Wisconsin, West Virginia at Texas Tech, San Diego State at New Mexico, Fresno State at UNLV. This one probably has my favorite player of the week in this one. Super consistent, super high upside, super better than Todd Gurley. Melvin Gordon is right now. I'll tell you this right now. I don't care what, if they're same price, give me Melvin Gordon 100 times out of 100 this weekend against Illinois. It's not even close to me. Not even close, Andrew.
He does not look interested in.
He doesn't want to respond to this comment here. Tell me why that's not a good call, Andrew, if you don't agree with me.
I'll pass.
You're trying to push your homerism to the side, and you can't do it. Let me tell you why. Because Illinois has given up 7,000 rushing yards in the last 2 games, and one of them was to Nebraska. That's understandable. You're playing Amir Abdullah, who, by the way, had like 220 rushing yards in the first half. It felt like. I think he started the game with like four carries, 80 yards, and then I know Purdue is a powerhouse and everything, and Akeem Hunt is probably in the top 5 for the Heisman. But you got to stop them a little bit better than what they did. They got shellacked by them. I think Melvin Gordon. I think Wisconsin is a blowout team at it. Illinois could do that, and Melvin Gordon is going to get 250 yards and like 2 touchdowns.
Yeah, I can't argue with that.
Anybody? I mean, it's just he's turned it on ever since that really bad Western Illinois game, which is weird. He's been awesome since. Super safe. 29K is very bearable. Very doable there. What about Donnell Pumphrey against New Mexico? Zach, you're the king of this area. Tell me what you think about that matchup.
Yeah, I mean, I like that one. I think there's going to be I like Pumphrey against New Mexico just because New Mexico can't stop anybody. So Pumphrey's definitely a good option. And also in that game, I don't know, before we overlook it, Crusoe Gongbe may be out for the season. So Terrion Gibson is probable to play, so he may be the option in this game at running back.
Can you speak English? Because I don't know what a Gongbe is or a Terrion is.
New Mexico running back.
All right, New Mexico running backs.
5 Gs.
Let's see here. 5 Gs, Terrion Gibson, 5 Gs. A Zach special there. Other running backs that you're looking at here in this other slate, Andrew?
What's his name? Ferguson's very cheap at less than 10 Gs, and I think I saw you say it on Twitter that he's basically going to be the offense now, right, Chris? With
You would think that he'd have to be the offense. He didn't the thing that's only holding me back a little bit on this is that this, Wes Lunt's out, and with them it was clear that they weren't going to run it a whole lot. But when he came out in the game 2 weeks ago, and when Riley O'Toole played, I guess that was against, I don't even know who it was against, but he didn't get a ton of carries that game. Yeah, he got 15 carries last game, and people are saying career, season high, but he had a 14 carry game earlier in the season. There's no real difference. He got 10 catches, which is why his point total is so high. If they score points, it's going to be from Ferguson, and I do like Ferguson and to begin with. And then you see his price against Wisconsin is very nice at, I think, 9K?
Right. Those catches aren't a fluke, though. He's a great pass-catching back, and you would expect them to rely on him even more now in that capacity.
Yeah, no, he's definitely a 3 to 4 catch guy at worst, and with the backup, and maybe you see an easy 5 to 6. And Northwestern or Wisconsin has typically had a pretty good defense, but this year they've kind of struggled a little bit. Justin Jackson, a freshman from Wisconsin or from Northwestern, ran for 150 yards against them. So maybe he gets his first 100 or his second 100-yard rushing game. It's just rushing yards have been a little low for me to love him, but at 9K you gotta like him there. Staying within that game, I can't believe Clement is 6K. Guy's got 16 carries in 2 of his last 3 games. A really bad Illinois defense. I think they can blow him out. If they blow him out, Clement's going to get his carries because he only had 6 last week, so he's fresh. You gotta like Clement there. Anybody else running back wise here, Zach?
Zach, there's a made-up guy on UNLV who's pretty good at running back, right?
Wait, we're going UNLV now? Well,
Yeah.
Okay, hold on. Yeah, they've got a couple guys that they kind of
Educate us.
do what?
Educate us on the made-up players.
They like the guy Keith Whitley. He gets a steady dose of carries, about 15 a game. He hasn't done anything outstanding, but it's pretty average, about 15 carries, 80 yards. They got another guy. His name's George. Let me look at it here. Make sure I pronounce it as close as I can. Naufahu. Naufahu. And he seems to be their home run hitter. So, I that's tough, man. It's hard to put stock in them.
I just put you on the spot because Fresno's run D is so terrible that I think it
They
warrants
are, but
consideration.
like UNLV is one of those teams that they kind of ride the hot hand. Like if a guy
Yeah.
breaks one, he might get the rest of the carries for that game.
Okay. Good to know.
I think there's a lot of value to be had in this running back group. With the Terrion Gibson, Corey Clement, Ferguson, those are all underpriced
I
players.
agree.
I don't think Gordon. I don't think obviously 30K. He's only 29. If you get stuck in a weird spot, I think Russell
Yeah.
Shell is a decent option for 14K. He's all of a sudden getting a lot of carries in that offense. And wasn't he that really good running back for Pittsburgh that was in weird split time a couple years ago?
Yeah.
Yep.
So
He's awesome.
Yeah, he's a good talent. Touchdown in a bunch of games in a row now. I think there's a lot of value in that area. Quarterback.
Hey, real quick, go back to running backs real
All
quick.
right, running back, what's up?
A guy that might just kind of fly under the radar, Donovan Young for Illinois. He's the backup running back, but he's.
I hate that guy.
I mean, I don't expect a huge game out of him, but if he could steal a touchdown here, they like 5K. He's 5K, right? Yeah, 5K. I mean,
What?
bad option.
Here's what I was kind of wondering about, and I was trying to figure it out, and I decided you want another 5K guy. Wendell Smallwood is 5K. Is it conceivable that Riley O'Toole comes in and plays quarterback, and Illinois says, you know what, I cannot throw Riley O'Toole 40 times a game, so why don't? And Ferguson is not a 25 carry guy, and Donovan Young's already a guy that's consistently has been getting some goal line carries. Is it conceivable that Donovan Young can get 10 to 12 carries in this game, and maybe as long as Lunt's out?
Oh, no doubt.
I think if you're playing in a 3-man or a 4-man, or even somehow you get in a 6-man on Fantasy Elite, I wouldn't be mad at all about getting Donovan Young. You could snake a touchdown. You could get an unexpected 12 carries. I wouldn't be surprised at all by that play there. Quarterbacks, what do you think on this, Andrew? Do you think Davis Webb against West Virginia, Clint Trickett maybe, or one of those really, really, really terrible Wisconsin quarterbacks?
Well, I think Trickett in a vacuum is probably the best play,
Yep.
and probably not just in a vacuum overall. Like at 25, that's fine. And there's cheap quarterbacks in the slate too. I'll let Zach talk about his boy on New Mexico in a minute, but what's it called? We already mentioned O'Toole at 5K if you're in a bind. I know Nick Sherry is terrible, but he's probably going to start, and he's at 6K, and he's facing Fresno. So, I mean, you would expect some points to come from him as the UNLV quarterback. But let's transition to let Zach talk about his boy in New Mexico.
Quarterback, I don't know. Zach, go. Lamar Jordan from New Mexico, freshman. He scored a touchdown in every game this year, and he's starting to pick up more and more reps. And he threw 11 passes last week, but they're not known for throwing. He's a running quarterback. And he had 106 yards rushing and a touchdown last week. And that's when I decided.
Did they split quarterbacks on that team?
They did. Like, what I noticed, I didn't watch the game, sadly. I couldn't watch it. But they played
said that about a New Mexico game.
Cole, what's this, Cole Gouch? Is that how you say his name? I don't know how you pronounce that. But either way, he started the game, but it looked like he didn't play long, because this guy came in and started, kind of gave a jolt to the offense. And I think they might, as they go forward, might begin more and more opportunities. So definitely, guy. My two quarterbacks, I'd take Trickett and Jordan.
Yeah, I can get behind that. Trickett is a guy I really like against Texas Tech. That spread is somewhere in the high 60s, I believe, with a pretty, or not spread. The total is in the high 60s with a spread that should be within 3-4 points, with it being at Texas Tech. I have concerns over new quarterbacks on the road, but you know what? I think that's just like one of those things where I got burned by a noon quarterback like 2 weeks in a row, and now I just get really scared off by it. But anyways, I think Trickett obviously at 25K with his receivers, unbelievable options. Wisconsin quick, Tanner McAvoy and Joel Stave. We can't touch those guys, right? That's just like
Are you off the
that should be
bandwagon?
illegal, correct? I was never. I mean, you know what? I was on the bandwagon, and I was going to say I wasn't, but I was. I don't. What happened last game where Tanner McAvoy was running around with his head cut off? Like I don't get it. Like is Northwestern's defense the real deal against the pass?
No idea.
Makes no sense.
What do we?
I don't think you can touch those guys. Not with the guys that we've already mentioned here.
Before you switch gears from quarterbacks, how do you feel about Brian Burrell against a pretty terrible UNLV defense? I feel like he's been getting better, not necessarily great, and they don't exactly use him in goal line scenarios because they bring him to net. But I feel like he could easily throw for 300 and a couple scores.
Yeah, I definitely don't disagree with that. I think more realistically, though, you're looking like 250 and a couple scores, which that's kind of splitting hairs. But still, I mean, I think that's definitely feasible.
Yeah, and at 14.6, that's I mean, it's not terrible at all.
Right.
All right. We talked about some of those. I briefly mentioned some West Virginia receivers, how good Clint Trickett has it. I can't believe we're talking about how good Clint Trickett is this year, by the way.
I'm sorry. Can I cut in just 1 second?
Damn it, Zach.
Well, hold on. No, he brought up a good point in the last thing. I should have said it earlier. But why not Knet at 5K?
Well, would you rather have Knet at 5K or would you rather have Riley O'Toole at the same price or Sherry at 6K?
Yeah, I don't know. I was just throwing the question out there.
No, I don't think that's a dumb question. I think Knet goal line carries. We've seen what he can do, but I'm personally on the side of I'd rather go with the starter and just hope that Riley O'Toole, finds Ferguson and lets Ferguson make it happen.
Yeah. Okay.
I mean, I didn't see him there, and it is true he does get some carries. Andrew, did you want to jump in?
No, it's a point by Zach. He doesn't just get goal line too. They'll use him short yardage all over the field, and then I've seen him go hurry up and just stick with him for the next couple of plays until they get a longer scenario where they're inevitably in like 3rd and 12 because they're pretty dysfunctional this year. But I agree. I think I tend to agree with Chris that when it comes to the terrible players that want more reps. Because Net is like entirely dependent on getting a goal line carry, basically. But it's not a bad idea. I want to follow you.
Thinking outside the box can win you championships, or in your case, Zach can get you second place.
Yeah, if you're not first, you're last.
If you're not first, you're last. West Virginia has some really good receivers, and you can get 2 of them for the price of $30,000. Mario offered at 9.7. Steal for me. I think that's a great price. Kevin White at $23,000 against Texas Tech. If I was going to pay up for anybody besides Melvin Gordon, this would be the guy. At 23K, Kevin White's been pretty automatic. Ever since I wrote my article on him, he's been unbelievable. What do you say about that, Andrew?
He's awesome. I mean, he's entirely bankable, it seems, and he's gained so much momentum that one of these weeks he's just going to let everybody down. He's going to be 80% owned across every site, and he's just going to let everyone down. But I don't think it's this week against this terrible Texas Tech defense. And, I mean, I'm completely on board. But if you give me the chance, I might take it at 9K over him just because I think Alfred is good for 8 catches, somewhere between 6 to 10 catches, probably a touchdown, and over 100 yards in this game, and 10K less. I mean, I can use that savings elsewhere on the slate.
I'm just rereading my little piece on Kevin White. Kevin White will be a valuable asset in 2014. Sorry, sometimes you call him right at the beginning of the season. Sometimes you call him right at the beginning of the season.
Yeah.
That's my one right there. But to be fair, he had 2 games under his belt. So looking at other guys, Jakeem Grant's been pretty great. A touchdown machine for Texas Tech. That's going to be a high-scoring game. Is 20K too expensive for him, Zach?
I don't think it's too expensive based on his production. I mean, it's pretty fair, honestly. But like you said, like Alfred at 9K, maybe almost 10K, is a steal in my opinion. Especially if we're rolling Trickett over Webb in this game.
Yeah, I think you pair him up. I think you pair him up if you're going to do that.
Yeah.
Or if you're going to get, look at one way or the other. I think you definitely have to go Alfred no matter what.
This Tech team seems like they're in a Michigan-type spiral, too, where I know they came out of it last year in the bowl game, but they kind of did the same exact thing where the team is just in steep decline. And, I'd rather put my eggs in the West Virginia basket, or if I'm going to sack teams, I'd rather sack Wisconsin in the slate, maybe Fresno. Well, actually, I'll take that back. But I don't know. I just don't see Texas Tech going back to their early season ways anytime soon.
Yeah.
Which for me makes 20K kind of tough for Jakeem Grant.
Cliff Kingsbury's had a tough time with the good teams, and this is the case. Again this year they haven't really played well recently. That's just Texas Tech in a nutshell, man. They just sling it around so much, and they can't get out of their own way sometimes. Illinois has had some really good producing receivers, but with West Lund out, there's no way I'm possibly rolling Mike Dudek, who had 8 catches, 200 yards last week. Wisconsin's defense is better than they showed last week.
You mean you don't want to roll Justin Hardy in this slate?
Justin Hardy? We have Justin Hardy?
For Illinois.
They have fake Justin Hardy.
Is there a 5K Justin Hardy?
Yeah. Hardee.
Oh, you know what? You were just... I thought it was spelled the same and everything. I was going to say, wow, this is impressive.
No. But he's actually a
Geronimo,
contributor, so I'm just throwing it out there.
Just throwing it out there, of course. Geronimo Allison is the guy I was on last week. I guess I was on the wrong guy, but he still scored a touchdown. His yardage wasn't great, only 4 catches, I think. I just don't think that this is the matchup especially with Riley O'Toole at quarterback. Maybe a different story with West Lund. I can, warrant saying a guy like Allison here. But Wisconsin receivers, man, if you watched any of that game, you saw all they did was just throw it to the sideline. Literally just screens, bubble screens on bubble screens on overthrown passes. It was terrible. Joel Stave cost me probably another $500 because of that stupid interception at the goal line. Can they just take away the ball from him? Just put his pads on, and just stand in the corner, Joel, because you're not providing anything for this offense here. Did I go overboard? Could you tell that I had some money invested in that situation?
No, I didn't. Couldn't tell.
All right. Any receivers that you guys are looking at besides some of the ones we've already mentioned? Maybe Devontae Davis. I remember him. He was a big name.
No, Devontae Davis.
But Zach saying no to Devontae Davis.
Devontae Boyd.
Devontae Boyd.
Yes, Devontae Davis has been hurt the last few games, and they're very quiet on Devontae Davis's injury. And Devontae Boyd's a freshman that's played really well, all things considered, for UNLV.
Yeah.
All right.
I'm on Harper in this too. Even though he's 13K and maybe he's not my number one option, the guy's incredibly consistent and he's got a great matchup against UNLV. He's definitely a top 5 receiver in the slate, probably top 3 or 4 for me.
Whew. All right. Bradley Marquez at Texas Tech. I know he had a really unimpressive game last week. What about this week? Better matchup, 10K. That's a pretty affordable price for a guy that.
I didn't hear that. Say that again.
Oh, I just went muted. Are we back here? Can you hear me?
Yeah, we're good.
Somehow I muted myself. Bradley Marquez, 10K. That seems to be a bit underpriced.
Yeah.
He's had some huge games. What do you guys think about him this week?
I don't see why not. I mean, we're expecting in the over/under in this game like 75 or something like that.
It's high 60s at lowest. I can't imagine it being.
I mean, I figure like we're expecting points, right? So
yeah.
I don't see why it would be a bad move, especially if we're taking Alford at 9. I mean, Marquez right there, right about the same. So yeah, I mean, I don't see why that would be a bad move.
I like him. He's a top 6-7 option for me. I mean, if Texas Tech scores touchdowns through the air, there's a good chance they're going to beat through Marquez. I think I like Harper more. I like Alfred more. I like White more. I guess none of that's really saying too much, but I like for his price. Clearly, I like Marquez more than Grant. And overall, I mean, Marcus is going to find his way on the team if you're doing a heads-up slate. I guess it's just a matter of whether you're thinking about him with your 4th or 5th pick or your 6th or 7th.
Yeah, the over/under is 73.5, by the way.
Yeah, that's a good over/under, and it's going to be a close game. It sounds like.
Yeah. It's not going to be close.
You don't think so?
No.
So you're off the train wreck that is Texas Tech and then onto the Clint Trickett train?
Entirely on board.
I can't blame you. I have one question for you guys. Do you know how John Davis from Illinois did last week?
Did he do well?
We saw your Twitter feed, or at least I did.
It is only appropriate to mention that John Davis extended his streak of 5 games in a row with a carry, doing his best Dan Vitale impression with a 3-yard carry, but he did add 2 catches for 21 yards. He decided to play the position that he actually plays and catch a few passes, which is cool. John Davis. What's that?
Did he score?
No, he didn't score. He's John Davis.
So why are you reveling in this, aren't you?
Because it's my weekly John Davis mention. I have to. It's literally my boss told me if you don't mention John Davis,
that
is the host.
That bandwagon must be very easy for you to drive. There must not be a lot of cargo on there.
I can whip this thing around pretty easily. I can parallel park this thing, like, quite simply. All right. Did we mention everybody here? I think the second slate was a little bit easier to digest and to kind of figure out with the fact that Illinois' players were kind of shunned and Wisconsin's players were shunned except for Clements and Gordon. So it kind of made things easy. Do you guys have any final thoughts on these matchups?
I guess something I'd like to throw out there, like we didn't talk about the Fresno running backs in this game.
So Fresno running backs, you want to touch on it a little bit?
Well, I'm just saying Waller and Quezada. Well, I'd go Waller, I think, but I mean I think they both have value in this game. Like what do they price it? You got Waller at 10K and Quezada at 8. Yeah, I think that's a good price for both of them. Really, Waller.
Okay.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I'm expecting pretty good things out of Fresno in this game, and I mean I'll probably end up owning Waller when I do a draft.
What's the injury situation for San Diego State? The receivers. We talked about last week how Larry Clark was one of those guys that could possibly fill in and be the number 1. I think he only had like 3 catches, 30 yards.
Yeah, but I think they only completed like 6 passes the whole game.
I was going to say, I think the quarterback really struggled on that one. That obviously didn't help.
It's bleak out there in the San Diego State passing game. It's Stave-ish, if you will.
Well, we might get Eric Judge back for the Fresno game, but he's questionable. Yeah, because Ezel Ruffin's out for like 6 weeks. So
that's awesome. I'm tweeting that out.
Your
comment, Andrew. That was just awesome. It's Stave-ish. Yeah, I'm pretty happy with our coverage here of these games. Make sure you guys check out the chat or on the actual Lou Dogs page. Adam, a.k.a. Lou, they're running this free hoodie contest. You sign up with Victiv. I believe you deposit some money. You retweet it. You put your info in there in the thread, and you have a chance to win a hoodie and some other prizes as well. I'm going to go probably try and get one quick draft in here. Which slate do you think interests you more, the second one or the first one?
After doing the first one, it felt more work than play, and the second one looks like a lot of fun. So I'm leaning towards that.
That first one's tough, mainly because of the price of the quarterbacks.
I'm with you. I think after looking through some of these guys on the second slate, I was like, this just seems easier to pick from. You know, easier matchups to like or dislike, easier way to fit, you know, some.
Yeah, there's nobody
really like.
If you like that guy, you can pretty much find a way to construct a roster with anyone on that. So I think it's always a good thing.
I mean,
Really
cool. For that first slate, you're looking at those games, and we basically decided, okay, Wazoo's going to get shut down, Florida State's going to run over Syracuse, and Oklahoma should, you know, hold Texas to very little. But in the second slate, we're expecting points in all of those games. So to me, that's a no-brainer.
Great.
All right. Yeah, thanks, Rock Daddy. Sorry, I just got distracted there a little bit. All right, so everybody, good luck this weekend. Fantasy Elite stuff. We might be doing a Saturday morning nice little chat. Maybe we do like a nice quick 30-minute show and kind of BS around for a little bit. I don't know you guys' availability. We'll talk after the show, but hope you guys have a good draft. I want to go hit it up there to see if I get some action with maybe Head Chopper or something like that. Try and get some vengeance on him. We'll see you guys soon, hopefully in the next few days. If not, we'll be back obviously next Wednesday for sure. So make sure you tune into our Twitter accounts and get drafting away on Fantasy Elite, guys.